see, and Leader in Me is being adopted district-wide. And so we've begun that process. Schools are getting trained now. They're doing their Lighthouse training. We have a district team that's gone through the training. So that is, I didn't know if that's what you were talking about. That's why I was asking. So that's Leader in Me. So that's what we're moving forward with. And then we also have Second Steps, which
Second
may
Steps
be,
is what I was gonna say.
so we have a program, Second Steps, that we have in all of our elementary schools, some older, but all of our elementary schools. And so it could be that the school you're talking about has implemented that in a way that's happening across the school. I don't know.
Second Steps, because I have not heard about Leader in Me at all. So that's something that I'm assuming Leader in Me is like a social emotional
Yeah, so
learning program.
it's Stephen Covey's like 7 Habits. You know, like 7 Habits of Healthy Adults, 7 Habits of.
That's the premise of
Yes.
it.
So it's based off of his writings.
So what is the vision for those programs? Like, what is the district's goal, I guess, for how that's gonna look?
So it's teaching each of the schools certain components to talk about giving students responsibilities and giving students a voice, all of those things to be able to teach them the social emotional skills that they need at different levels from the pre-K level all the way up to 12th grade.
And every school is assigned a coach. And so the coach works with the individual schools to do like a needs assessment. And so the schools will, not every school's plan or program is gonna look the same.
And it's a 3 to 4 year rollout.
Correct.
Okay. I would actually really like some more information on that, because that's sort of, I mean, and I actually brought this topic to the table because I feel like, behavioral mental health is such a big part of the phone calls that we're getting. That I think it's really important that we take the district does take a district-wide, every kid, every day approach to trying to address these things. The MHPs and the SROs and all the communication and making sure the kids have access to that is all great, but it's almost kind of like we're just kind of putting out fires.
Yeah, this is gonna equip teachers in the classrooms to be able to have that ability to work with the students every day on a very structured manner.
And actually everybody gets trained, not just the team, every person on a school campus, cafeteria, custodial, tutors, everybody participates in the implementation of that program on the campus. So we're very excited about it, Ashley, and I'll get you some information about some of the details of that.
I was just thinking, in part of that implementation.
But email me. So
In part of that implementation strategy, is there an inclusive nature for children with exceptionalities?
Yeah, I mean, I think the intent is gonna be that the teacher is going to learn all about it and implement it with their students based on the students' needs.
Okay, gotcha.
So it might be Kevin turning on and off the lights, and that
Correct.
is his responsibility and taking responsibility in the classroom.
So they'll
Where
adapt.
another one may
Yes.
be taking the lunch count in the morning, or, so based on the student's ability level and the students, that's why it's gonna look very different in pre-K than it will in high school, but it's based on the understanding that there's a leader in every single one of us. There's a leader in every single 4-year-old and every 5-year-old. In our EC Suite classes that have 3-year-olds, we're teaching them the skills to be able to find the leader in me and how I can contribute and how I can do different things that, just pulling it out of them and kind of finding a new way.
Okay, so Second Steps is already in all of the schools already have access to that program?
In
They
the
do.
elementaries, and it's been there for quite some time. It's been in our pre-Ks for a very long time, but rolling it out and having the materials and supplies for all of elementary.
All of the grades. And is that part of what what the district is trying to do currently is like get that program.
That's actually like been in place for many.
Yeah, but
many
it's not being used, what I feel like I'm hearing, and I could be wrong, so.
Is this not being fully utilized in every place? That maybe is what you're saying?
Yeah, it does not look the same from classroom to classroom, I would say.
Okay. It does, I mean, is there a plan to try to get that more consistent across the board for?
I think
like,
those are more resources that are embedded into their teaching
And
every day,
interventions.
where Leader in Me is really gonna be the district initiative, kind of looking at that PBIS role for the schools.
So, what was described to me, I really feel like it was Lancaster. I really think it was. I don't even, I have no idea in what context that conversation happened for me to remember more than that. But the conversation was around the fact that those kids are getting specific social skills, specific emotional, coping skill type thing every day. Like instruction in those things. It's not just like, as it comes up, but like specific time, 5 minutes, whatever, set aside every day to get that instruction. I feel like it's valuable. I really think that a lot of kids would benefit from that, especially our kids with exceptionalities that are in those gen ed classrooms.
Okay, and, as soon as we leave here, I'm gonna have to.
I'm already texting Laura right now.
We'll find out right now.
So the other, I would say, I feel like that needs to be I would like that to be a recommendation, that the district look at specific social emotional instruction for every child, at least in the elementary age, every day. Even if it's just 5 minutes, something, where we take a topic and talk about being kind to our friends or whatever every day.
And I know, look, I feel like I'm being a cheerleader for Leader right now, but I've been going through the training, so I feel like it's like foremost in my brain. But that is part of the implementation of that there are actual lessons that are built into the program that happen either in the context of like a community circle or a morning meeting or whatever the schools have set up. So yes, that is part of the design of that, and that is what we will be moving to. And again, like Candace said, it's a 3-year rollout. So I feel like I'm screaming at you, and you're right, my phone is right here. But it's a 3-year rollout, and so that will be the culmination of the full implementation.
And the idea is that we know our campuses,
Right.
and that it may look different campus to campus, and we've actually heard from other administrators, in our small group sessions and even at principals meetings, that have talked about, the rollout of it and then the implementation long-term of it, and the difference of having it at one school in the district versus having it at all of the schools where they're starting with them young, and then how it looks as they get older, and the legwork that's done as they're younger, and the great things that are able to shift and change as they get older because of it, and looking at the kids that have had it since they were in kinder and first grade that are now graduating high school, but putting kids on those teams, not just the adults at the school making those decisions, but the kids being part of those decisions as well.
And to your point, Ashley, it's super critical. And yes, we see the need. And so, we were looking for something, and we feel like this is the best thing. I mean, I personally didn't, I had already reviewed it myself. I wasn't on the RFP committee, but yes, hands down, it was the best.
And doing it as a 3 to 4 year rollout, being much more palatable of change, like where it's not overwhelming on any campus, because it's like, okay, you're getting your feet wet. I know that my Lighthouse team meeting happened last week, and we start with a group of teachers, and ours was teachers, MHP, counselor, administrators, even like art and music, library, PE, like we had some of our enrichments on there, so everybody kind of can talk about it in their walk of life, if you will, for the day. And starting with a group of cheerleaders, if you will, that are trained, and then spreading it more like that fire that spreads, and does it in a very slow rollout where it's not the one more thing that is on a teacher's plate.
So do we have it at any junior high or high school yet?
Right now, it's just the Lighthouse team training, so that a team at each
Gotcha.
school this year is being trained.
But junior high and high school.
Yep,
have
every
teams
single
too?
school, all 55 schools.
Oh, okay.
And actually at, the different locations,
yeah.
departments that are happening, everybody across the district is being trained in it. So as they go to schools and push into schools or
All my
support.
people just got 7 habits trained.
Yes.
It was wonderful, right?
And so then it turns into a training for all of the staff at the school, like she said, paras, cafeteria, everybody, because then that common language becomes the next step to it, and then it's the next rollout of implementation. So it's learning, and like our Lighthouse team, the teachers are already like, okay, well, the ones that are in the team are like, I wanna start doing this in my classroom, and
Yes.
almost like a pilot of it before it rolls out to the whole group of teachers, where they're like, okay, I've tried this works, this doesn't work, like, what can it be for our kids? So that's why I said it's gonna look very different campus to campus, because, and it's gonna be the excitement that is built within that is gonna be the potential of any school.
That's great. I mean, I even see this as, for students with exceptionalities, especially in high schools, when they go to, the apartment that you have set up, what a great time to maybe use some of those strategies in that setting. When we feel sad, we could do, like, taking that time period when you're in more of a vocational setting.
Michelle, did you have any thoughts? I know you've been listening.
I have. No, it sounds great because my son is actually transitioning next year into junior high. So I'm just very hopeful. I do have one question, and I don't know if this, I guess it does fall under mental health, but what about ABA therapy? My son, he was diagnosed with level 1 autism, and I did ask like the school if they offered any type of ABA therapy, and they say they didn't, and I've been having like so much trouble just trying to access, the type of help for him.
You wanna go?
One of the things I was
Yeah.
going to say is that we do have contracts with multiple agencies that we do, that we can connect you with. So we do have that as a resource, and we do have students who receive ABA therapy in the classrooms. It's
okay.
not, though they aren't our employees, but but we work in conjunction with them.
So most of them, or all of them, I guess, it's like your private health insurance is working with the ABA clinic, and then it's called an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, and those techs, and the ABA therapists come onto the campus to support the student, but it was parent acquired, and then a kind of an agreed upon situation.
And Michelle, I can just offer from, as a parent, whose child does receive ABA services in the classroom, the process, is an extension of also just behavioral interventions that are taking place over all settings, school just being one of the places where interventions are taken. So typically, you would reach out to a BCBA who is with, an agency that either Medicaid or your private insurance contracts with. You then go through a whole intake session, identify behaviors, and then out of that identification, they'll do a functional assessment to determine what types of interventions might allow that student to be more successful at school. And then out of that, then you're in the school.
Yeah.
That was my experience.
But a
So-
lot of our classes use ABA strategies, but not direct therapy, like in a ABA, like we don't have a BCBA that's doing therapy with children on the campuses, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, I think my son, he might get some of that because I know, so he's like on level 1, but he also has ADHD and epilepsy. So, I guess sometimes he might raise his hand when it's not appropriate, or, if they're on a certain topic at school, he will start talking about something totally different. So I know he has like this little chart that he'll have to kind of help him, like, I guess stay on topic. But since they told me about ABA therapy, I feel like that might help him. And I mean, if someone is able to go into the school and he's able to receive that in the classroom, I think that will be actually like, really good for him. Not just for him, but also for his teachers as well. So, they might be able to communicate with the therapist exactly what issues he's having.
He's at Florida Avenue, right?
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
What about you? You can quiet over there.
Oh,
You have any thoughts?
listening. Is,
I mean, you're not required. I was just asking.
Well, it's
Wanted
our-
to bring you into that.
no, thank you. So is our topic today mental health and behavior?
Yes.
That's, I mean, there's so much to talk about with behavior, especially,
Yes.
but, I don't know where to begin.
We've begun.
Okay, well, we have, yes.
Chipping away, right?
Yeah, you're right.
So, just to recap, since I'm looking at the time, and we usually finish up in about an hour to respect everybody's time, the recommendations that, I've kind of written down so far, and y'all can help me fix them if we need to fix them a little bit. Just looking at school-based communication to ensure that all staff know the role, of an MHP counselor and that they're available. And making sure that there's parent communication and parents know that they're on every campus and available to help. Something maybe in a welcome pack of the high schools where that's communicated. Communication at our principals meetings and maybe through Janelle, making sure that all principals have something in place to make sure that that's happening at each of the schools. Recommendation of looking at the size of the school for the number of MHPs, ensuring that every school has a published referral process for MHPs in place and that's communicated. Identifying maybe a program, what is offered and what can be duplicated that's working well at schools, and then the district looking at the social emotional instruction daily that's happening as well.
I wanna just add just something real quick to the referral process and just to make sure that, maybe consider some of our kiddos, maybe our nonverbal kiddos or our low verbal kiddos have a, how they or their parents can access that referral process for
Okay.
MHP as well.
And I think FaceTime with the kids too, with the MHP. Like,
Okay.
this is who I am, this is what I do, on all levels, right?
Whether it's through an assembly or through class to class or
This is
whatever
where my
works for the
office
school.
is. You know,
Yeah.
this is where my office is.
Go ahead, Ashley.
How often are teachers, in particular teachers, are receiving PD related to like de-escalation strategies, behavioral management strategies, classroom management strategies, things like that? And then the other question that I kind of feel like are connected, actually it might not be. Are there any resources for teachers on campus to, for themselves, to like help them to kind of de-escalate or reset or deal with their own kind of mental health stuff related to students' behavior?
Like adult mental health, like availability
Yeah.
for the teachers
Like
to
if I,
receive.
as a teacher, have a child who has a crisis situation in my classroom, do I have access to like the school's MHP or somebody related with the district or at the school where I can say, okay, like help me, because I mean, I understand we're all, they're adults, but that's traumatic for adults too.
It is. So Ashley, I'm so glad you brought that up. So one of the things that we have been concentrating a lot on this year are our crisis teams at the school, our NCI teams, separate from like the other kind of crisis team. And one of the parts of that process is that piece, that sort of it's not de-escalation. I'm losing the word. I'm even looking at my
Making
my
sure,
book
yeah.
in my mind about what step that is, but making sure there is that opportunity for the adults to debrief to
Yeah.
think about it, to talk of the coping
Coping
model,
model, yes.
and go through all of those steps. So that is part of that process. And this year, and we just did it, so it's very new, but we trained an NCI trainer, 2 of them, on every campus. So, prior, we had, all the training was coming through our department, and we were doing these big, massive trainings every year, but we felt it was important to have experts on the campuses. And so those people are really considered to be the experts in were you one of the ones who went to the training? So
Yes.
you're an
So,
expert now.
what that allows us to do on our campuses is if we find that there are 6 teachers that are struggling, specifically, maybe not across the board, but that year they have students that are maybe a little bit tougher and they need some de-escalation work, we can train from within
Yes,
on
building
that piece,
capacity of
that
that campus.
maybe just even that specific piece. Maybe it's not the holds that are happening, but that de-escalation. So we're able to, with those people on our campus, do maybe like little mini PD sessions through PLC, after school, whatever we need, based on what the needs of our teachers are at that time.
So that is in the build. I'm sorry, I talked over you. What was that?
Alright, that's district wide, so like
Yes.
every school in the, okay,
Every single school, yes.
good.
So we're, like I said, our focus with that is really trying to build capacity on the campuses. So it's less of a raising the red flag for help and having someone have to come out there, there just isn't the personnel to cover that in our district.
And honestly, what I've seen from an administrative standpoint is with iTeach coming, with a lot of these alternate certifications, teachers that are in the classroom may not have gone through a formal teacher training. So they don't necessarily have training on classroom management. They don't have some of the trainings that a traditional teacher that went through a 4-year teaching degree may have had. And then in addition to that, which didn't get mentioned, is we have behavior coaches that come to every school every week. And they are working with the process of doing FBAs and doing those behavior intervention plans and being kind of an expert and training staff through that process as well. And they are in the classrooms all day when they're on our campuses and really hands-on as a behavior coach on every campus as well. So that's been
Coaching
an
the
addition
teachers, not really intervening with the students, but coaching the
Yes.
teachers up with, yes.
with those strategies specifically.
Perfect, okay.
Anybody have anything else? And that kind of falls a lot more into the behavior piece
Realm.
than the mental health piece, even though they cross over, so.
I do have one last question, I'm sorry. So, we have an IEP coming up for my son, and you guys did mention that someone is contracted where some, therapists do come to the school. Well, should I share this information when I attend the IEP for my son in a few weeks?
So,
To see,
the way that you may, be able to start that, and you may be able to help along the way, like privately outside of this meeting, but it's really through your doctors and maybe starting with.
Okay.
And actually, Michelle, my name is Teresa Stevenson. I'm more than happy to share with you my experience. And
Sure, okay.
I will ask Candace to set up an email between you and I, so then we can talk directly and I can kind of give you my 2 cents worth.
Mom to mom.
yes. Thank you, I appreciate that.
Yes, because she's gone through that process to the point that
Okay.
Kevin has support in the classroom. So
Great.
she's already trenched through those waters.
Okay,
And that
thank
may
you
be
so much.
a good support for you.
Yes.
Thanks.
I guess the final question that I had, behavioral intervention plans, do they stay attached to the child forever? Or do they have to be
No.
revisited
Every year, you should be revisiting
Sometimes
every
every
year.
6 weeks.
Sometimes,
Depends.
depending on the plan,
Depending
that's
on
right,
the
and
plan.
sometimes the
Okay.
plan tells you how
Right,
long.
4 to 6 weeks we're coming back or every
Gotcha.
data.
And the goal would be.
If it's working.
dependent.
Yeah.
Well, if it's working, keep it working, that's what we wanna do.
Right.
But sometimes our kids get to the point where they no longer require behavior intervention.
But it should be done at least with the annual IEP
Correct.
if they have.
Okay, gotcha. Yep. And then if they don't, if for some reason there was a behavioral intervention plan that was in a previous IEP, and that's not a behavior, you just don't address it at the IEP
Yeah,
and
so
then
you
it falls
can
off?
say, I mean, you should
would
at
address
least
it.
put in that the behavior intervention plan is no longer necessary.
Right, for this,
and
for this
it's-
year.
Right, for that behavior and assessment taking. And it would be on the actual BIP that you reviewed it and that it's signed off on.
Right, because if there are other behaviors that come up, another.
And sometimes you're working on a much more intense
They gotta figure out the
behavior, like,
function of the behavior.
it might be
Yeah.
4 or 5 behaviors, right, but you work on the most intense, the brightest
Yeah.
behavior, and so you might knock
Exactly.
that one off and then need to go to the next one or the next one until the point that those skills have been
Gotcha.
achieved, and you know, I mean, that's the goal, right?
Right, right.
Yeah, the goal is to give them those strategies to be able to handle the behavior in the long run. I mean, we have, especially with our biddies, we have to help them all along the way.
So do
because
you
if
have to
they're
open an IEP to have a new BIP?
You actually can have a behavior intervention plan without an IEP,
Okay.
but
But
It would probably go
has the
through-
IEP, we go through the
Okay.
IEP.
yes,
So
with
the-
it at
and
the
then you
same
just
time.
reopen it for a second.
Yeah,
and
so
then-
like students that maybe it's a behavior that's happening there in kindergarten, they don't have an IEP, we
Gotcha.
might look at it through an SBLC process, like that first intake
Okay.
of going. And a lot of times, you know, we have tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, that the teachers are able to implement something in the classroom that's a little bit different than what, you know, all of the other students have. And that's enough in itself sometimes. And if it continues to escalate, that's when you go through that TAT process with the teachers, assistant teachers, and SBLC, which is school building level committee process, to be able to give support to that student or the teacher as
So
necessary.
that whole process seems to.
That's the goal, for sure. So, well, thank you all for coming. Ashley, Michelle, thank you for at least being able to, phone in today, with your placements. Not able to come in physically today, so thank you all for being with us, and we will, call this meeting adjourned.